It's the Duchess, also known as Hafiza, and this is my new channel. I'll talk about my nerdy and often neglected things. Please subscribe, like, and leave nice comments. My first video is about how Tony Blair commissioned and ignored the Jenkins Commission. Roy Jenkins was a Labour MP and minister in Harold Wilson's government, and he was in charge of the Home Office. Some of his achievements were the abolishing of the death penalty, removing corporal punishment in prisons, and more liberal attitudes towards LGBT people and drug offences. However, when Labour lurched to the left under Michael Foot, he split off from Labour and set up the Social Democratic Party. However, with first past the post, this meant that things were very bad for his old party, with Labour losing 4 consecutive general elections. It's been said that in the UK, we are conservatives who occasionally vote Labour. Seeing all this, it's not surprising that there were potentially deals being made, and people being apprehensive about the result in 1997. There was a proposed pact between Labour and the Lib Dems, in case there was a minority government. We actually saw this in action with Labour and the Lib Dems pulling out and letting Martin Bell defeat Neil Hamilton, who was disgraced for corruption and sleaze. Right after the election, Labour won a massive majority, and this meant that they no longer needed the Lib Dems to be a part of government with them. However, Tony Blair did commission a report on the electoral voting system, with Roy Jenkins overseeing and providing recommendations. In the predecessor of the Lib Dems, the SDP Liberal Alliance, they were mainly supporting the single transferable vote. John Cleese even promoted this method in a party political broadcast.
Now, at the moment, the UK has 650 constituencies returning 1 MP each. Under the Alliance's new system, there'd be a smaller number of bigger constituencies, about 140 of them, returning, on average, 4 or 5 MPs each, roughly like this. Each one of these is a new constituency. So, you get a voting paper like this. Now, instead of putting an X against the person you want, you put 1 against them, then 2 against the one you like next best, 3rd choice, 4th choice, and so on. That's it. All the rest is the polling officer's problem. There. 40 seconds.
However, that was more proportional and would see every constituency enlarged and multi-member. In his report, Roy Jenkins chose an alternative, or as you say, the alternative vote plus. This would see 80 to 85% of seats in the House of Commons being voted by alternative vote. They would be single-member constituency seats. However, there would be some regional multi-member seats. These would be voted using the second part of the ballot. These seats would be allocated based on how well a party did in the party vote, whilst also taking into account how many seats they won in the single-member constituencies. So parties that didn't do well in the single-member constituencies would be topped up based on their party vote. And if a party did very well in a single-member constituency, they were less likely to get any regional multi-member MPs, as the share of Parliament's seats was already quite high. Roy Jenkins argued this would keep the constituency link with the voter and the MPs, whilst also allowing some proportionality. But it would not lead to unstable coalitions. If we look at the results at how AV Plus would affect the 1979 to 1997 elections, we would see that the winning party would still have a majority in most elections. However, Labour and the Conservatives would have slightly fewer MPs. You can see that the Liberal Democrats would have nearly double as many MPs in AV+. The other parties would do slightly better too, but most of the gains were going to the Lib Dems. When you win a massive majority like Tony Blair did in 1997, you no longer need to do something that would only limit your power and enhance somebody else's. Jenkins himself recognized that Blair would never accept electoral reform in the House of Commons, and he wasn't really that surprised. We did see electoral reforms in some other places. So in the UK's European Parliament elections, we saw pure party list proportional representation. In the newly created Scottish and Welsh parliaments, we saw the additional member system. Even in the Northern Irish Parliament, they actually did use the single transferable vote. So Tony Blair didn't completely backtrack on electoral reform. It was just very unlikely that it was going to happen in the House of Commons. If we look further into the future, in 2011, there was a new Conservative and Liberal Democrat coalition. There was a referendum on the alternative vote. However, this removed the multi-member constituencies and the proportional element. The Liberal Democrats would do better in 2010 if there was the alternative vote. However, in some cases, the alternative vote is actually less proportional than even the first past the post system. The country rejected this system, and there was a very low turnout. Since the Jenkins Commission came out, there has been very little movement on electoral reform. However, it is still pushed by the smaller parties, and even some in Labour and the Conservatives. With these two parties diminishing over time, it will be interesting to see what sort of electoral system we have in the future. In a future video, I will discuss how I would reform the electoral system, but without causing crazy coalitions. Thank you so much for watching my first video. I was quite nervous making this. Hugs and kisses to everybody who watched. Please leave a like, subscribe, and comment. I want to continue doing this because this is what I am passionate about.